Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is something that's really influenced myself, not only as a marketer, more specifically as a business person when it comes to taking first-of-its-kind technology to market. And the book is The Sales Acceleration Formula, using data, technology, and inbound selling to go from 0 to 100 million by Mark Roberge. Now, Mark was the VP of sales at HubSpot. HubSpot is a world-famous and publicly traded SaaS company, specifically in the marketing realm. Now, as they grew, they realized how valuable their marketing automation software was, and so of course they added a CRM to it. Now, this book goes through the framework that Mark used to take HubSpot from 0 customers to over 12,000 and 1 employee to hundreds. And if you haven't used HubSpot before, I highly recommend you do it. It's something that I use in all the companies that I go to. That's just my personal preference. But they really help you look at the data from both the marketing and sales side to start understanding how do we drive actions and, more importantly, results really using data. And that's a thing that's been missing, in my opinion, in the medical device world, especially on the sales side, because that's not something we normally do, which is using the automation of marketing and combining that with sales. Usually it's marketing capturing leads and heading off to sales. Now, a couple things I want to go through in this video. One is, what does inbound sales and marketing look like? This is something that I've taken a philosophy of. I'll be honest with you, Mark, I've stolen a lot from your book and from your company over the years and implemented it at the companies that I've worked at. But this is, in my personal opinion, the way that not only the medical device and pharma industry is going to be going, but a lot of industries that will be going, because of the fact that we're growing in an ever increasingly complicated world with a lot of noise. So the first thing is, what does inbound really mean? Well, if we look at outbound sales and marketing, it looks very much like the simple funnel, which is we look for everyone who has a good fit, for the product or service, and then we sort through all those customers to find the ones who have a pain, right? The problem, though, is if you look at medical devices, technically almost everyone is a good fit for your product, right? That's really something that's in every industry. And of course, going through all those people who are technically leads and then siphoning through to find out of the hundreds, maybe the 5 or 6 that are actually the ones who have the pain to purchase, that's a problem. It's a very expensive process, and timeline-wise, when it comes to sales, it takes a long time. Now, the inbound method, as opposed to the outbound, has people coming to you, which is you start with the people who have the pain. And from the people who have the pain, you get to decide who's a really good fit for your product at that point in time. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, when it comes to inbound marketing, the first part, which is a lot to do with persuasion, is getting attention, right? If you look at all the psychology books that I've reviewed, if you look at some of the greatest works from the advertising ages, such as the Hallmark Breakthrough Advertising by Gene Schwartz, they all say the same thing, which is to persuade, you first have to get attention. If you can't get attention, you cannot persuade. And so with inbound marketing, one thing that HubSpot did very well, and that's of course how I discovered HubSpot, is they are the masters of producing a lot of content unrelated to the products, to get people to go to their sites, whether it's marketers, CEOs, salespeople, to start using tools and education on their website, whether it's a blog or their website grader, to help them with their skills. And if you are able to get attention that way, at some point you can funnel someone down towards the problem that you solve, and more importantly, the solution to your problem, aka your product or service. Now, if you look at this simple funnel, this is what I personally have put together and I like to use. When it comes to inbound marketing, you want to think about how you can attract people to you. And the way you're not going to be able to attract people to you but is literally just jumping straight to the point and talking about your product and service. You've skipped many parts of the buyer's journey. So let's pretend that we own a gym and we're trying to get people in as members. Top of funnel content, which is usually non-branded content, in my opinion, right, has nothing to do with the product you provide, which is this gym or the service. Let's say it's training sessions, right? Non-branded content is purely there to capture attention. Because remember, if you cannot get attention, you cannot persuade. Now, when it comes to top of funnel content, you're looking for things that are going to capture somebody's attention. So again, unrelated to the product, let's again go back to the gym example. Maybe you should create content around interviewing, let's say, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or perhaps you read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. That might get someone's attention who's going to be your potential customer. Maybe it's the top 10 things that every bodybuilder should know about nutrition, right? Or even something around management, something completely unrelated to your offering, right? That's enough to get attention. And again, when you use things like the Facebook Pixel, maybe you use HubSpot as software, you have something to, again, remarket to that person. Because the whole idea is that if you cannot track who's come to your website, you're wasting your time and energy, because you need to find a way to follow up with that person. So once they come to that website of yours, when it comes to the top of funnel content, or even online through Facebook, then they get nurtured down to middle of funnel. Middle of funnel is when you start talking about the problem. So maybe the problem is, how do you get bigger muscles? How do you get in better shape, right? Again, unrelated to your product. You start nurturing and educating this person on the problem that you solve without talking about it. So perhaps part of that problem of getting bigger is that you have to go to a reputable gym, you need to go to a place where they have heavy enough weights, maybe good trainers, it needs to have some sort of certification. Now you're educating people here. But again, your brand is associated with this all along this way, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, or Instagram. Because now your brand is essentially being that one thing that's educating this new customer on how to get in better shape, how to be fit, what they should look for in the gym, perhaps some maybe exercise routine. So now after your middle of funnel is done nurturing them, and let's say they've watched or engaged with certain content, then they go down, and whether it's through, again, your website or anywhere else on social media, then they start seeing bottom of funnel content. That's when you start looking for conversions. The bottom of funnel, now you start saying, hey, this person's into nutrition, they're into fitness, they want to learn about weightlifting. Hey, here's our gym, here's our great trainer. Here's our trainer, Ronnie. He's really, really ripped. He's going to get you in great shape. And here are the beautiful weights we have. Aren't these amazing, right? Here's a code, and your first week is free. That's when it comes to conversion step. Because again, because of how people think, right? Whether it's on, shopping on Amazon, or let's say for $1 million robot for a hospital, we've all been conditioned behaviorally, because of online shopping, to expect things a certain way. And so this is the buyer's journey that most people in B2B marketing, or B2B, in any B2B industry, are expecting, because that's what they're used to. They're going to carry those behaviors into work. It's not going to be separate, right? And so for the medical device industry, you really make a leap forward in terms of how do we actually sell and take first of its kind technology to market. This is how we have to start doing it. Instead of this outbound process of showing up unannounced and just blasting our message and product in front of people's faces and hoping that of all these people who have a great fit, maybe we'll find the one that has a pain. We got to find a way to bring them inbound to our website, to our content. Again, all the people who have that awareness, that pain, which is the first step you need to convert and persuade somebody, and then figuring out who's a good fit, right? That's the way you have to start thinking about it. Now, the last thing I would say is this when it comes to B2B marketing, right? In the new age, right? Using whether it's a tool like HubSpot or anything else to capture data and start really understand what does it take to take one customer from the top of the funnel all the way down to conversion. The old way of marketing for my industry is sales would come to marketing and say, hey, this quarter we need 100 leads, right? So for marketing, that's really easy. Maybe you go to a conference, maybe you set up a very easy white paper to download, and you get 100 leads.
To sell them. You can't close the leads you're given. You can't close it. You are hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out. The leads are weak. The leads are weak. The leads are weak. You're weak. I've been in this business 15 years.
What's your name?
You. That's my name.
Again, you end up with a bunch of people who are a good fit, and you figure out who actually has the pain to purchase, right? Because people do not purchase unless they have a pain, they are aware of a problem, right? The new way, which is how marketing should be held to, is a revenue standard, which is instead of a number of leads, sales comes to marketing and says, we need $1 million worth of leads this quarter. Now, how do you get to that point? Say you have a white paper landing page and you have a download there. Well, it's really easy to get those downloads, but maybe you realize that based on the kind of customer that comes there, the sales cycle is maybe 3 quarters, and then when they end up converting, maybe that customer is worth only $50,000 worth of business, versus something more difficult to get somebody to sign up for, which is, let's say, a demo, right? And let's say that's a shorter sales cycle because that's someone who has the awareness of that problem. Maybe those leads are worth $200,000. So between those two things, you can decide how you're going to get that $1 million of lead revenue to sales, but it's likely that you should do the harder thing, because going to a demo landing page is going to be a lot more difficult, but you'll get much more higher quality leads than sending them to a white paper lead download. Another really interesting thing I want to point out in this book, and this is something that I take into concept for myself, is the first hire at HubSpot for their marketing. It was not a marketer, actually. It was a journalist, I believe, from the New York Times. And the reason why is because they wanted to hire somebody who's really good at distilling really complicated topics down into a blog. And again, organically, when it comes to content and SEO, HubSpot kills it. There are so many articles on their website I end up using just because I'm looking for a solution on Google and it leads me to their website. Right? And so the one thing I would tell marketers, especially in the life sciences space, in biotech, med device, or pharma, is start thinking less of your marketing team as a marketing team and think of it more as a media team, right? What kind of content can we produce? How can we get attention? Because that's the thing that you need. You need to be very good these days at getting attention. And once you're able to get attention and channel it and hold it, at that point, then you can move it along towards that pipeline and down the funnel, right, to convert over. But if you're not good at getting attention, it doesn't matter how great your product is, it's just not going to work. Now, what I love about this book is that Mark goes through 5 main sections. One is a sales hiring formula, a sales training formula, sales management, demand generation formula, and technology and experimentation. And so he really lays out a fantastic framework. And again, whether you're in sales and marketing, both are the same thing in my opinion. And so you get a really great understanding of, from a SaaS company point of view, what's the framework, what's the system that you use and the strategy to essentially scale up your sales efforts, and more importantly, having a commercial team that is data-driven so you can understand exactly what you're doing at each step and how do you tweak each step. Otherwise, you're just kind of shooting in the dark and you're hoping to capture a bunch of leads and maybe some of them will be a great fit. It's the wrong way of thinking. It's a very expensive way of thinking, and this is a much better way. So one thing I loved about this book is that there's a lot of great frameworks in this, and of course Mark included a lot of data, so a lot of charts, a lot of graphs explaining his approach and his process at HubSpot in the early days. The other great thing that I think a lot of sales managers and sales directors will appreciate is his process in terms of how to use data to better manage and coach salespeople. I'll probably do a video on this later on, but it's a fantastic framework of what you do at the beginning and the end of every month, and specifically choosing one skill to work on versus kind of dumping on a bunch of skills at once with a salesperson. So I definitely recommend this book for sales and marketing teams, so that way they can not only have alignment, but they start thinking together as a commercial team, not just sales and marketing, and that way they all work together towards the same goal. So that's your book of the week. Happy Wisdom Wednesday, and as always, I'll see you next week. Bye for now and take care.